everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Ecom Elevated. I'm your host, Pete from Soapbox. We made this show for listeners like you and mine who are looking to grow, build, and succeed in the e-commerce industry. However, this landscape is consistently changing with new players, ideas, and business models being introduced daily, which at times can be a lot to manage. That's why we sit down with industry leaders to discuss their tips for success, reveal their secrets of the trade, and so much more, which you can use to elevate your business above the competition. Welcome, and I really hope you enjoy the show. No matter what we see or hear out there, there's one thing that's always true. Running a business is a lot of hard work, and there do come times where we all need a little bit of guidance to get us to that next level. But who and where do we turn? That's where our next guest comes in. He's been part of some major corporations like Instacart and Dropoff, but struck out on his own 4 years ago and has become the founder and president of Gembah Incorporated. And he's here to share some advice with us. Please welcome Mr. Zack Leonard. Hi, Zack. How are you doing today, sir?
It's doing well. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining us. That's for sure. I know it was, last minute, but I really, really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm going to take it way, way back. I'm going to start from the beginning, before Gembah was even in that thought. Like, where did you get your start?
Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Then I went to school at the University of Texas and graduated with a degree in finance and went into the finance world, did some consulting at KPMG for a few years, and then got an itch to go into the startup world. And I went to a company called Instacart. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And I was one of the first.
Who's that?
Yeah. I was one of the first 30 people there, helped run and scale the Texas markets, foster partnerships with Whole Foods and H-E-B and Costco, and helped lead a team that was in charge of managing supply and demand in real time. And then went to another same-day delivery startup that was based in Austin called Dropoff, where I was the head of strategy there. Helped, come up with some profitability models and helped, foster growth with them as well. And then I noticed that there in the delivery space, it seemed kind of like a race to the bottom. There was a lot of competition that was going on, and if you had a good product and a good service, like, it was great, but everyone's always shopping. So I thought there was more value to be had further up the supply chain than the last mile. And so I started doing some research, and noticed that there was a problem with manufacturing transparency. And so had myself and a few co-founders, or a couple co-founders kind of came to, meeting, once a month and trying to talk about product market fit. We got a few customers on, and then, I took the jump almost 4 years ago to the day, to do it full time. And now we're here.
And look at you now, right? And you obviously handle a lot more than the manufacturing process. Can you tell us a little bit about what Gembah actually does for the brands?
So Gembah, we are a product development platform that helps our customers do anything from creating products to manufacturing products. We do that through a network of designers and engineers that help with the actual product development process. Doing everything from taking your ideas out of your head to getting the, sketches and renderings and CAD files and bill of materials, everything you need to go talk intelligently and get quotes back from a factory. And once that process is done, we then turn it over to our teams overseas, which you have 8 different regions up and running, throughout Asia and Mexico and South America. And they'll help you, get bids back from, factories that we've vetted. Our network spans over 2,000 factories in those 8 different regions that we've vetted, pretty heavily, doing, 150 plus point inspection on those factories to make sure that they're a viable partner for, our customers.
You guys definitely sound like you do your homework. It's a lot of in-depth work when it comes to manufacturers. And what is the number one mistake that you see entrepreneurs do or make when it comes to the manufacturing process itself?
I think it's, specifically in the manufacturing process, I think it's um, not valuing the relationship as it should be. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs want to move fast, get their product to market. They're looking to source really fast, and when you go fast, you tend to make mistakes. And so, if you aren't validating, for quality, if you aren't validating who they do business with, if you aren't looking at, if this is the right partner for you, um, it can lead to some problems downstream. And so, I think the biggest thing, I wouldn't say, compromise total speed, but also make sure that if you are going fast, that you have the proper mechanics in place to make sure you're properly vetting your factory and make sure that it's the right partner for you from a scale perspective, from a quality perspective. What you don't want to have happen is that your customers are quality controlling your product, and that's how you get low star reviews and, could be business killers. And so, yeah, I think the first things first when it comes to manufacturing is finding the right partner.
Yeah, and that's huge, right? I've worked in the health supplement field in the past, so I've dealt with a lot of manufacturing. And there's one thing that I always did with all these manufacturers is visit the site, right?
Yep.
Going there, looking at the manufacturer, and seeing them face to face. But
Right.
why is that important, right? You could go on any website, Alibaba, and purchase anything for less than $1 a unit. Like, why do you
Right.
want to vet your manufacturers? Why can't you just do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the name of our company, Gembah, actually comes from the manufacturing term in Kaizen theory, where it's the place where value is created and it's on the manufacturing floor. So, I've been, to countless factories all throughout the world. And I can tell you that what they appear to be on paper is never or not always the same as what your expectations are when you go there in person. And so that's really why it makes sense that you have to go to visit them in person. And if you can't do that yourself, maybe it's too costly, maybe there's COVID restrictions or whatever it is, find someone you trust that can in a local market. And that's really our philosophy at Gembah, is to make sure that, you have a local team that can go to those factories that are on your, standing shoulder to shoulder with you as your team overseas. But again, like a story I can bring up is, there's a factory that, on paper looked awesome. We were in the heat of trying to get a toy manufactured for one of our customers. And, this company had a Disney certification, they had Walmart certification, which in the toy industry is like, almost the cream of the crop as far as certification goes. And then, they had great ISO ratings and standards and stuff. And we went to go to a factory visit, and there was nobody working at the factory. None of their machines were working. And the toys that were there looked like they had, boxes that were made in the 1970s and 80s. And so, again, it could be that they outsourced to another factory that has those certifications, and they, were using themselves as a middleman, which means that you're not getting the best potential cost because you're paying a middleman to outsource it in China, or they have a network or wherever it is, or Vietnam, or, wherever it is. But that information you would not have been able to get unless you physically went to the factory itself. Like, they could have shown you pictures from the supplementary factories that you're working with, or the outsourced factories that they're working with. They could have shown machines that were running at a different factory, or people that were working in a different factory. And so really, it wasn't until we went to that factory and actually validated that what we saw on paper was true in person, and got that, evidence kind of going in there, that we weren't able to, do it. So, that's why I, say and promote, visiting your factory, whether it's yourself or someone else that you trust.
Yeah. And it's so important. I'm not to scare anybody. I have the exact same experiences. I've gone to multiple different factories, and it's amazing what they put on their website and, the pictures they put on there. But again, that might have been 10 years ago. Like you said before, you go in there and half the stuff is not working, very low staff. It definitely makes a big difference. And, what are some things that entrepreneurs can do to better prepare themselves when they are looking to discuss with a manufacturer?
Yeah, I think having a good understanding of what standards are and what compliance things that you can be looking for will put you ahead of the game. Looking for details on, price quotes that come back, like how detailed are they at the product level? Like, are they showing you the all-in cost? Are they showing you the components that go into it, cost perspective? Some other things, looking at, terms. Are you looking at, shipping terms and payment terms? Like, what does that look like? Is there a cost for the molds? Like, some sophisticated stuff like holding molds off site or something like that. So you make sure that they aren't replicating your product and selling it on different markets. ultimately, like, again, this is why I said it before, having that trust with your factory partner, to me, it's the second most important relationship you have as a business owner. If you're a product company, the first is your customers, right? You have to really understand your customers, their needs, and be able to solve that with your product. And then also continue to enhance your product through development to make sure that you're consistently fulfilling your customers' needs. And then after
Mhm.
that, it's your factory partner, because they're the ones who, architect and make the actual product, right? So, holding a high value on that relationship is really important. It will pay dividends in the end too. I mean, again,
Mhm.
although they're in a different part of the world and they may speak a different language, they're still human beings at the end of the day, and people like to be treated a certain way. So if you hold that relationship, very valuable, and you treat people well, I've seen that, it ends up paying dividends for, crunch time and times of need. So, that's all I can say about it.
Yeah, and we've gone over some really great, ways to vet the manufacturer, but this stems a lot further than just manufacturing, right? You can use the same tactics when it comes to, looking in the fulfillment process when you're looking to add additional options within your organization, whether it's, overhead itself, head count, things of that set.
Mhm.
What kind of factors should a brand consider before, adding additional headcount for their workforce, or what should they be looking at, after manufacturing process is done to continue to grow?
Yeah. I mean, having a really good handle on supply and demand, right? Being able to
Mhm.
forecast accurately and understand, when you're going to run out of inventory and all those things. Like, if your product is selling like hotcakes, you need to be able to make sure that you can keep fulfilling that product and don't get bottlenecked by, cash and all that stuff. So being able to really accurately forecast your your supply and demand is probably of, the most paramount importance to running any business, regardless of what department you have, or if you're the owner of the business, or if you're forecasting your time for a project, right? It all comes down
Yeah.
to how fast do I need to get this done, and do I have the ability based on my skill set, or do I need to go hire somebody to do that based
Mhm.
on the time that I need to allocate towards X project or X business or X uh, X product.
We always have some type of bench, when it comes to additional projects, or, when it does come to the busy season, we all have that. E-commerce obviously picks up in the holiday seasons from October through, January, February for the return season.
Mhm.
How do you appropriately staff? How do you appropriately plan for something like that without having, that partnership that you have with the manufacturer, but also the closeness with your team? Because obviously,
Yeah.
you as the president cannot manage every single facet of the business,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it's being very humble and understanding what your core competencies are and what you're not good at
mhm,
at the very foundation level. As a business owner, especially when you're starting out or as you're scaling, like, you want to have control over everything. And it gets really
mhm,
hard to do that as you scale, right? So finding the right people that can kind of offload a lot of those tasks that you may not be good at, or you just don't want to do, right? Like,
yeah,
even if there's something that really annoys you, I have some friends who are starting businesses, and they're like still doing their QuickBooks, and I ask them why, right? Like, why are you doing that? Like, do you enjoy doing that? And they say no. I'm like, well, a bookkeeper's pretty cheap, and like, if you can't value, your time is like $200 to $500 a month, like, come on, like,
yeah,
what are you doing here? So it's tasks that, you don't want to do that are, very outsourceable, or at least on like the time for yourself. And then I think the other part is just having a really good plan every single quarter, putting yourself out, putting your plan on paper, and making sure that the people who are responsible in your company for executing on that plan do so. And,
yeah,
nothing should be caught by surprise that you're meeting every single week, going over the plan and seeing what's happening in real time. So if you can have a plan, put your stuff on paper or have your goals for your quarter, and then execute against that quarter. And if stuff comes up, you kind of help shift priorities based on how the quarter translates, right? Like, a forecast is a forecast for a reason.
yeah.
The ability to react and make changes due to what's happening in real time is what separates, the next level of entrepreneurs from the people who probably won't make it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, obviously having the right people in the right positions is probably one of the most important things. What are some of the options or things that you consider within the interview process when you're considering to add someone to your team or to take on that really responsible role, whether it be, head of warehouse or, things of positions like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, a good combination of experience. Are they doing something that our company is either aspiring to do that, we need expertise on, or do they have, kind of that intangible personality of, grit, determination, etc. And then I think the other part of it, which is really important, is culture, right? Like, are they a good culture fit? Like, you can be again, same thing as a factory. Like, you can be, an A+ on paper, but if you are in person and your team doesn't vibe with them, then it's probably not going to work. If you can't vibe with it within that first, couple hours of meeting them, what do you think it's going to be like, in meetings and working with them long term? So I think culture is a big part of it as well. And that's, again, the intangible part that you can't really measure on paper. And same thing if you're, again, going to a factory, it's the intangible part you can't measure on the factory. Is you only get that experience by meeting them and going through the process and doing the vetting yourself.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought up culture. It's obviously something that's been growing a lot more over these last few years since we've all been working from home, and obviously our interactions have changed day to day. But culture is huge. If you don't have the same like-minded people like you, like same way that you think, the same type of morals, the same type of ethics as yourself, it's hard to run a business and give that type of trust to somebody and just be like, here, go ahead and handle all my finances. It definitely takes a huge gamble at that point. But knowing that someone has the same type of work ethics and same type of thought process like you do, it makes that whole transition period so much easier.
Right.
And I think that really pushes into your last tip, which I absolutely love. And I'm just going to go with the title, and I'm just going to let you explain what you mean. You said hypothesize, test, analyze, and repeat. And let me know what that means to you.
Yeah. So, when you're in a process of growth, right? Like, then this goes back to the forecast that I was talking about. Like, the whole point of the forecast is to help guide you to where you want to be. There's going to be a set of things that you probably know every single month. Like, if you have a subscription business, right? Like, that's your base of customers that you can count on for a certain amount of time. If you're trying to grow exponentially beyond that, like, how do you do that? Right. So the first step is to hypothesize, like, what are the ways that I can grow? Right. You could do partnerships, you could do promotions, you could do marketing. Like, there's a ton of different things that you can do to help grow your business. So you sit down, you have those growth meetings, or in your head, or whatever it is, if you're a solopreneur, right? Like, you kind of put all those stuff on paper and really spend time on, like, what are the avenues I think I can grow? Where do I want to start placing my bets, right? So that's the hypothesize. The testing part of it is to set up a testing environment after that, where, you say, I expect this outcome and I'm going to measure it, right? That's your testing environment. And then, you validate the test by seeing what happens when you put those dollars and those bets down. And you see, like, was my hypothesis correct or not? And you start learning, based on what you hypothesize, how to make changes. So, like, when you're looking at a sales funnel, right? Like, if you're testing copy in a sales funnel to see which one has a better open rate, like, you're testing that and you're going to make the change to see if that incrementally beats the next, old one. We call it hero challenger here at Gembah, but, like, you have a hero every single week that's going to work, and you have a challenger that's going to compete against it. So that's kind of the validation and testing. And then once you've gotten to a point where the challenger beats the hero, you rinse and repeat that again and see if you can keep beating keep beating the hero. And that way, you're always learning, you're always figuring out and adapting to what the market conditions are. You're adapting to what your customers or your leads are coming in, and trying to, understand your product. And eventually you'll get to a point where, like, you're just continuing to grow and grow and grow, because your hero is so powerful that only a mighty challenger will be able to take it down.
I keep hearing challenger, and all I keep hearing is villain. All I keep hearing is villain over and over again.
No, it's definitely not a villain. The challenger is, it's not a bad guy. It's a good guy. It's someone who can help make your business better.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the biggest competitor that we all face is ourselves, right? That's really the end of it.
Right.
You and I, we face ourselves, and that's the same thing with our business. The only challenge that we face is getting out of our own way and finding that additional revenue source, right?
Right. If it was only that easy.
Yeah. Just takes a little bit more than that.
Yeah. But I hear what you're saying.
What are a couple ways that Gembah is actually, running tests and in the product field and in the marketing field? Like, what do you guys do for your clients when it comes to, this rinse repeat cycle?
Yeah. So I mentioned some stuff on the sales side, right? Like, we have different sales funnels, we have different marketing channels. We're testing out, different aspects to see which one grows faster, which one resonates with customers, like always testing those types of things. On the product side, we're very agile. So we'll start releasing products, see how customers behave, get their feedback, see if that measures up against what we thought the, build was going to do. And then we react and make it improvements based on that. But it keeps things much more flexible so that we don't have to spend so much engineering and product and development time on, what could happen or what will happen. We let the customer feedback kind of tell us what is happening and then iterate from there. So that's more of like when you get into product-led growth, right? Like that's the mindset that we take at Gembah to help us continue to optimize and get better as a unit, as well as improve, our software based on customer feedback.
Yeah. I mean, we've discussed a lot today, right? From vetting manufacturers to potential, hiring on new employees and some other great ways and way to, continue to grow your business. Do you have any final words of advice for, young entrepreneurs out there that are looking to get into their business themselves? Like, what would you suggest for them?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, calling your shot and making your shot, right? Like if you're an entrepreneur, you're placing a bet on yourself that you're gonna, exceed the realm of possibility of the average person who goes out and tries to build a business. And so if you're going to call your shot, then you better execute on it. And we call that making your shot, right? So if you call your shot, you're very good. You make your shot. That means that you're able to forecast and say, this is where I want the business to go. And you're able to make your shot, then you're able to execute on what you're calling, right? And so at the end of the day, if you get really, really good at that, have a growth mindset and learn and be okay with being uncomfortable of what the results may be, I think you'll be just fine.
Perfect.
Or at least you'll have a great learning experience and have some fun along the way.
It's funny that you say that, because when I talk to most business owners or entrepreneurs, it's never the first shot that ever, makes it to full fruition, right? It's always the second, third, fourth, because you continue to develop and pivot yourself. And that's some amazing words of advice. Don't give up. And one good friend of mine always said, burn the ships, right? I don't know if you heard that analogy.
Burn the boats.
Got it. Yep. Burn the boats.
Are you willing to burn the boats? Yeah. Thankfully, we haven't had to do that. But if you can take your emotion out of the equation and it calls for that and you're willing to do it, hey, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience over the last couple of years. I really appreciate being on the show. And, all of our listeners out there, thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you a little bit later.
Sounds good. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks again for listening. We hope you'll use some of the insights provided on today's show to elevate your own business's success. As always, listen and subscribe to Ecom Elevated or follow our Soapbox social media for more amazing advice. I've been your host, Pete from Soapbox. Have a great week, and we'll see you in the next episode of Ecom Elevated.